right there, ladies and gentlemen. It is your favorite dark sorcerer here. And today I want to talk to you a little bit about the mind, the body, and the spirit. Why are these three things so important, especially in the magical, spiritual, and physical applications? Well, let's just take a little bit here and kind of just go over some stuff. First of all, fitness is always a good thing because it has endurance. So therefore, a fit body and a healthy body is something that will benefit you when you get into spiritualism, specifically that of, say, rituals. Let's go with necromantic rituals or satanic rituals, witchcraft rituals and ceremonies. It's about endurance. It's about motivation and keeping a strong current going. And there's so much that goes into that alone. The mind controls the body. So a sharp, clear mind that is balanced plays into a huge, huge part in spiritualism. We tend to see it from a conscious and unconscious perspective. And when we look at the conscious, it's more of what we see, what we can prove. Okay, it's not what we. Okay, sorry about that. My computer is doing something weird here. But anyways, when we look at the physical, it's more about what we can prove, what we can see, how far we can go. Okay, basically, it's like that old saying: "Your eyes are bigger than your stomach." Okay, that's a great that's a great way to just put it out there and say, when we look at the physical, we always want more than we can handle. Okay, more than we can handle. So knowing this, we tend to go with the subconscious, trying to understand the dreams, trying to understand the spiritual applications of our own soul, our own spirit. Andrew Womack is a Christian author, and he wrote a book called Mind, Spirit, and Body. Very, very good book. And he used scripture in modern day, let's call it events, much in the same way as Francis Frankenpain did. And he really broke them down into three separate categories: the mind, the body, and the soul. Okay. And he went through the scriptures throughout the Bible, and he went into it in such a way that he proved without a shadow of a doubt, and this is a scientific perspective, by the way, at least in my opinion, he proved without a shadow of a doubt that all three things are separate. And this is the way he put it. And I'm going to dub it down into my own words. Number one, the mind is your car. The body is your vessel. And your spirit is completely separated from your soul. The soul is the essence of energy that moves on. The spirit is who you are. Okay? If we go by the satanic perspective, in this case, we look at what Anton Zandalave did in The Witch's Bible, forwarded by Blanche Barton. Okay, and here we see the three categories. The visual. Okay, this is what we call the alpha male or the alpha female. Then you have your inner core, your inner being, which is known as the subservient or little male, little female. Okay, and then you have your core of who you are and what you're about. So when we place this on a clock or a wheel and we time it out, you can tell exactly what that individual is about, what their temperament is, what kind of job or vehicle they would drive, how they live their life, and the whole kit and caboodle. So when I say that there's so much that goes into this, you would be surprised. Okay, and trust me, I've been studying this now for about 5 years since I got my hands on that book by Andrew Womack, and it was recommended to me by a friend of mine, and now I can actually understand why. Okay, so over the last year, I've been dedicating myself to the Mazajira, as I publicly stated on my Facebook and YouTube page, not this past January, but a year before, last year, wise. And going through all the books that I have, the PDFs that were sent to me, I can tell you I've been really working on the spiritual aspects and most importantly the separation of these two. And it has literally forced me to go back into the past views. So I've really been going through Slavic, Baltic, Proto-Germanic, you know, um, going as far back as the 6th century and Scottish folklore, the Hexa, getting into the old um, ways of doing things through the Greek and Roman necromancy, and really getting into the African Caribbean traditions such as Haitian Voodoo, Pedo Mayumbi, Pedo Monte, Kimbiza, even Quimbanda again, and really dedicating myself to that path and those root workings. And recently, I've come back into the philosophical perspective. And I really wanted to kind of talk about this a little bit because there are certain books that I would recommend for anybody who wants to really delve into the higher thought forms, the higher cognitive perspective when it comes to physical applications, that of spiritual applications, and that of just plain cognitive from the three main sources of mind, body, and spirit. Now, for a long time, I've always gone by Sun Tzu's The Art of War. This book here I got from at the time it was actually a different bookstore, which is now Books of a Million, BAM, and it was really worth the money that I paid for it. Now I was mostly looking for The Art of War itself, but this book actually has two others: The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli, on and then you have On War by General Karl von Clausewitz. Okay, and I probably just butchered those two guys' last names. So I do apologize if I did. And then you got another one by Frederick the Great, Instructions to His Generals. And this book really defines the art of warfare, of physical, spiritual, and mental. But it's also more about belief, the belief in knowing thyself, knowing thy enemy, but also knowing your capabilities, knowing who you are, what you're about. And this book literally led me into Marcus Aurelius, the Book of Meditations. Now, this book, this is what I refer to as a heavy hitter. Okay? A heavy hitter. There is so much wisdom in this book that it is literally thought, let's just say it, the perspectives of cognitive warfare, the thought ability, really derives from the 2nd century. This guy was way ahead of his time. His views as a politician and as a family man, as a spiritualist, especially in 2nd century Greek. Okay? I mean, let me just point something out here real fast to you. Infinite are the troubles and miseries that thou hast already been put to, by reason of this only, because that for all happiness it did not suffice thee, or that thou didst not account it sufficient happiness that thy understanding did operate according to its natural constitution. Now, if we look at this from a satanic perspective, it's called self-gratification and self-preservation. Okay, when we break these two guiding principles down, we're looking at the 9 satanic statements, the 9 satanic sins, the 11 satanic rules of the earth, and we are talking also the 21 satanic points. But then you got to take into account that you have different subdivisions of Satanism. So therefore, you'd want to go into like the 13 rules of the Brotherhood of Satan by the Satanic Brotherhood. You know, you go into what is it? Let's go with Master Cain's Gospel book. You know, his the Satanic Bible and the principles, the 9 Kings, the Book of Kings, and the Book of Hymns. Again, you're going to be seeing a methodology of principles that make up that tradition. Okay, even if you go into Vococalocus Aureax's way of life, the Cathedral of the Black Goat, you're going to see a set of principles, a set of ruling guidelines to live by. Then you have Marcus Aurelius. Okay, and it's ironic to see that he actually puts forth the ascetic keys of demonic invocation, methods of what you need to do and what not to do when in front of a spirit. Okay, but also he sets his own guidelines, his own principles. So it really does come down to you as the practitioner and what you're seeking from both your own life, but also that of spiritualism. Okay. Now, these 2 books led me into these other 3. Now, before I get into these other 2 here, I want to bring you into Bushido. Okay. I've always been fascinated with the Asian community, their mythology, their demonolatry, but more so their self-discipline. Okay, the discipline to do what they do. Okay, and they're able to do not just their intelligence, but from a philosophical perspective. That's what these next books are about. Okay, well, 2 of these books. But this one here really was pointed out to me. And it's called Bushido, The Way of the Samurai. And it was based on the Hagakure by, I'm not even going to pronounce this guy's name, I'm just going to spell it. Capital T Sunetomo. Last name is capital Y Amamoto. And it was edited by Justine F. Stone. And it looks like this. Okay, very very good book. I got this book. What was it? Saturday, and I'm already second halfway through it. I'm at the end of chapter book one on this already, and it's got like 14. What was it? Just a second, I can tell you. It's got 11 books to it, and you consider I'm that far. I'm literally like halfway through. Okay, and I've got like a page, one more page, and I'm on book two. This is my second time this week of reading just this book. Okay, the wisdom in this book is amazing, and I just wanted to read something from you, for you, from you. Hello. Okay. Yeah, it's definitely coffee time. But anyways, my master is human, and so am I. Okay, and it's called a Japanese proverb. On hearing and seeing the master, it is very spiritless of you to think you cannot reach him. First, think of yourself and your master as both human beings. Think also, then also think, in what way can one human be inferior to another? So thinking you can hope to reach him, then you have already entered the way. It is not because Confucius had tried to master the way, but it is because he had set his heart, okay, on learning at the age of 15, that he became a saint. Says the scholar of the clan Ittei Ashida. That's Ittei Ishida. Okay? In other words, you can have correct satori the moment you have set a definite aim in your life for the first time, as one of the Buddhist scriptures say. Okay? A lot of good information here. And this book here really talks about your mannerisms. Are you polite? Are you well dressed? How do you present yourself in any given situation? And as a practicing necromancer, I found this book very, very relevant because it also speaks about death. The way of the warrior, the way of the samurai is one of death, but it is also one of honor. Okay? So there's a lot of good stuff here that I would recommend that you get into if you really want to further your education here. Okay? Especially in that aspect. Seeing yourself as equal, but also not as inferior, but more of the fact as being equals. Now, when we look at the spiritual realm of godhood, when we look at that godhood, okay, we can literally see how should I say this? The macrocosm and the microcosm of occultism is not that far of a stretch. If you set your heart and your soul and your mind towards that aim, that goal of going from being a human to becoming a god, then you have that ability to set those goals in action. You have those goals where you can actually set up steps. Think of them as stepping stones to reach your goal. Okay? Think of it anything you want in your life. How would you go about doing that? You would first set up a plan, right? You would look at what you're doing and how you're doing it. And then you would say, okay, I got to begin here. If I want to get this house and my job is way over there, then I've got to first save up money to get a car. That car can then get me from the house to the job. Okay. But once I have the house, then I can get that relationship going. Then I can have a family. Okay. Or then, what is your spiritual belief structure? You look at some of these occultists, they have these big backyards where they have these glorious temples and shrines that they have erected either in a specific room in the house or in a garage or even in the backyard where they're doing open rituals and ceremonies. Okay? You got to look and plan on what you're doing, but also apply every aspect of yourself to achieving that goal. And people wonder why I like the philosophy of the Asian community. Very, very insightful. Now, the book of Bushido set me up with this one here. It's called Mastering the Stoic Way of Life. Improve your mental toughness, self-discipline, and productivity with ancient Stoic wisdom. And it looks like this. Okay? This book here, I've only started reading. Namely because it took about 2 weeks for it to come in. I'm not really sure why, but this book here touches on Zeno, teaches on Epictetus, teaches on Marcus Aurelius, Seneca the youngster, and so many other aspects of philosophy from Greek, Roman, the world over. And it's really about discipline and focus. It teaches you ways to focus and harness your mental capabilities. You know, have you ever had that itch where you really want to scratch it and it gets to that point where you just got to scratch it? Okay, you see the point there. But what happens if you are so focused and so disciplined that you can just turn that off? What if what if you let that itch just do its thing? It will disappear. Well, take your rituals for an example. Just take your rituals for just an example. How many of you have children? I have a 3-year-old son that likes coming into my altar room and wanting to ask me questions in the middle of a ritual, nonetheless. You know, even though I told him, don't come in here. You know, even my better half tends to come up to the door and ask questions. Okay, so you're going to have those distractions in your life. You know, think of it when you're doing a video and people are just chiming in while they know you're doing a live video. Okay? Think of it like this. You're doing a live video on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, or what is that other one? Oh, Twitter, for an example. Personally, I don't understand Twitter. I really don't. It's like technology. I really don't understand it that much. But here it is. You got people who are placing comments underneath, like they are right now, like Alpha Draconian, uh, Elcolon Ramos, and I believe there was somebody else up here that did the same thing. Right there. Zistrophoros. I apologize if I butchered the name there. I really do. Okay. Now, this is kind of this is respectful because it really it shows that they're watching. Okay, that they're watching, that they're learning what you're teaching. They're paying attention. They're probably taking notes and looking to either get into it or not. That's up to whoever watches. Okay, but then you got these morons, and I'm going to call them morons because they're just nothing more than vampiric leeches, and they'll go underneath Messenger. Okay, and they will keep messaging and messaging and messaging until you basically tell them to fuck off. Okay, now what would happen if you simply ignored them? If you simply blocked them out and just went, "Oop, bye bye," okay, you just got rid of their messenger, pop up, and you carried on your way. You just carried on your way. It's the same ideal with that itch. When you are performing a ritual or a ceremony, if you are in the middle of a lesson, okay, even those are just vampiric leeches trying to take away your focus, your discipline. This book here, just from what I've read so far of it, the 20 pages that I've read since I got it just 2 days ago in the mail, teaches you how to raise your mental barriers, to focus your mind and your discipline, just like you would as a samurai, a warrior. You look at what the military can do. Snipers can stay in one position for days, just waiting on that one target, just one target, and they will stay for days in that one position without moving. Do you know how comfortable that's going to be? Think about that for just a minute. How do you use the restroom? To quote the movie Sniper, the guy that played the DC cop that was sent down in the first movie, who's now preparing Tom Berenger's son, the ways of a sniper. He was on the field talking to his recruits who are laying with a gun pointed at the targets, the bullseyes. And he said, "You will remain in this station until you are comfortable with it." Well, what if you have to use the restroom? Do it in your pants. That's what it's there for. I love it so much, I'm doing it right now, he says. Okay? Think about that. That is dedication. That is commitment. That is repetition within a ritual format. Okay? Now, I know what you're thinking. That analogy was kind of what the fuck, But still, it is a prime example of self discipline, self focus. It is a prime example. And that comes from a Hollywood produced production. I know military guys. I'm friends with military guys. I'm on good terms with a lot of my old high school friends who are in the service. I hadn't seen them for years, and then they just started showing up at my work. My point is, it's not that far off. So when we get into discipline, we get into mental toughness. You learn to block out these distractions. You learn to block out anything that is not of the topic at hand. So even though you are putting a plan together for your life or for your magical practices, maybe you're putting up a web page for to sell your products or whatever. How would you go about doing that? You see that mentalism. You're thinking, you're contemplating on how to do something. Sun Tzu said, "To know thyself is to know thy enemy, and to know thy enemy is to know thyself." So therefore, knowing what you're capable of is probably the same thing your opponent is. So therefore, victory has already been won. Victory has already been won because you already thought and figured those things out. You've already figured out that you're tough. You've already figured out that, hey, I don't need to, drink to have a good time. Okay? Right there, that's victory. Okay? My point is this: when you don't stop and think about how you're going to go about doing something, how are you going to erect your altar? How are you planning to summon a spirit? How are you able to go 20 minutes in meditation if you have restless leg syndrome, okay? Or perhaps you're not good at meditation. Good pointers in this book, okay? All of these books that I just showed you so far has a lot of information and a lot of techniques of wisdom that you can take in. Which brings me to the last book, the book of Shinto, The Way of the Gods, Introduction to the Traditional Religion of Japan. Now, personally, I've always been fascinated with the Yakuza. I've always been fascinated with the way of the samurai, the martial arts, and everything like that. So this this book really was appeasing to me when I was underneath Amazon and I was reading down through, the little depiction of what's in this book. So I just got this in the mail today. So I'm really looking forward to delving into this. So I will read you what's on the back. Okay. Shinto is Japanese for the way of the gods. Shinto represents Japanese religion and cult that has its origins in prehistoric times, referred to as the indigenous faith of Japan. The belief occupies a significant position in even in the technologically advanced modern Japanese society. Shinto has held sway over the religious, social, and political way of life in Japan for over 2 millennia and continues its reign over the minds of the Japanese even today. The Shinto faith fascinates and mystifies the entire world. I'm on the other side of the world, and even I can confirm that one. Both the casual short-term traveler and those who have chosen to make Japan their home are enthralled by everything that represents Shinto or the Kami way. Shinto is more than a religion. It is a way of life for the people of Japan, amalgamating rituals, ideas, methods of doing things, and attitudes. Now, you remember what I said earlier in Buddhism, okay? Attitudes, your way of thinking, the way you present yourself, the way you speak, the politeness, cleanliness, whatever, clean shaven, clean cut, the whole king caboodle. It signifies. I mean, every religion out there really does talk about this. You think about it. You have spiritual baths, cleansing baths. You have no compensation, between copulating moments between male, between your partners for like a month. Okay, that cleansing moment, that purity within occultism, and then you go into like say Christianity, and you see it as a sin, and you see it as only meant for husband and wives, and a lot of other things, but still it's there. Okay. Even Christians will be clean cut. They'll speak to you in with respect, and then they'll just shun you if you don't, live by their way. But still, you got it there. It's that attitude, it's that cleanliness, it's that clean cut politeness. Okay. And Shinto is an integral part of the country and its people. The Kami way of Shintoism is a personal faith in the objects of worship. That's right, you heard me right. The objects of worship. Think of idol worship, Baphomet, maybe Buddha, okay? Maybe Kali, or let's go with Anubis, okay? Maybe even Freya. It's right there, objects of worship, okay? And a belief in noble and sacred spirits. Look at Vudan, how they uphold their gods, the Loa. Okay, look at those who worship demons, who work with demons. You look at, say, for an example, a good friend of mine, a brother. a man that I highly respect for his dedication and his commitment to his religious philosophy, Joseph Nunn, okay? Also known as Behemoth X on YouTube, okay? I can't tell you how much money he spends on his altars, okay? I don't even know that, okay? So that should tell you something. This man, if you've ever watched his rituals and you looked as instead of watching what he's doing, look at his altar setup. Think about all of that stuff that he's got in there, from that huge giant plaque of that one deity in the back to all the candles surrounding him. Okay? The robes that he wears, to the athame, the tools that he uses in his ceremonies. That is freaking, that is spectacular. That is true dedicated worship right there. Okay? So the kami way of life in this case, he fits that to a freaking T. Okay? He fits that to a T. I got nothing but respect and love for my brother. Okay? He may be Luciferian and I may be traditional, but guess what? I got respect for this guy. All right? So it goes on to say Shinto follows the belief that the emperor is a divine descendant who governs the land with the help of rituals done for the deities, or kami. Shinto ritualism takes place in hundreds of shrines all across the country. These local rites performed at each of the community shrines mirror the emperor's ceremonies. Shinto followers believe that these divine rituals help in aligning the supernatural, human, and the natural worlds harmonizingly together to achieve prosperity. The book is intended to give a basic yet detailed view of the Shinto world for a beginner. This book traces the path of Shinto starting from its ancient origins to present day. Now, what I find interesting is in this, if we look at the emperor or the president as being the most holy divine, this is like looking at the Pope of the Vatican. Or how about the head of Taoism, Buddhism, Buddha rather. What's that one there? The Tibetan monks. Okay, same exact thing. The head monk is the elder, someone who's full of wisdom, knowledge, somebody who literally is said to speak for the ancients, for the gods. Every religion has followers. You look at the cult of Anubis, the cult of Artemis, Hecate, even. All of these gods and goddesses from Aztecs to Egyptians, like the Shem priests, or that of, say, Druidism back in the Gaelic system, okay? The ancient Gaelic system. They had followers. I mean, you look at the Roman Empire could even defeat these people because their belief structure was so entwined with the Druids that while they engaged the people, they sent a squad to assassinate the Druids. Think about that for just a minute. Their belief was in the Druids so much, just like the Catholics believe in the Pope, just like the Buddhism believe in their elder. I forget the name of it, name of the elder offhand, but you look at that for just a moment. If you worship any deity, that deity has your respect. It has your religious worship. You give offerings, you give sacrifices to those beings. You read the Bible for an example. How many times did the story go that such and such a Joe went from point A to point B because their God told them to? Look at Job. His faith was unshaken that he wouldn't even tell God to piss off. Okay? He lost his house, his friends, his family, his livelihood, and he stayed true to his God. You go into philosophy. Okay? Let's go into Dante's Inferno for an example. His faith was so strong that it didn't matter that he was banished from his home country, his home, that he had been imprisoned. He simply put out a work, a philosophical work, which is now considered a play, okay, to the cardinal to show the cardinal his misdeeds, that he had sinned against his own God to try to save his soul, but he didn't. The guy was too haughty, okay? You'll find these things world over in just about every single religious philosophy. Doesn't matter if it's Zoroastrianism, Christianity, Satanism, witchcraft, paganism, Wicca, voodoo, Palo, Santeria, Brujeria, you name it, it's going to be there. It's that common relationship between man and God. Okay? Think of it in occult terms, the microcosm becoming the macrocosm. Even the Christian Bible says that if you eat thereof of the tree of life, you will become as a God, knowing the difference between good and evil. Okay? So is it too much of a stretch that the way you present yourself, the way you handle yourself, seeking out that knowledge and that wisdom, that you and your association with those superior beings that we call gods are there as our masters? Or is it the fact that they are showing us how we too can evolve personally through self evolution and spiritualism to become a god ourselves? Mind, body, and spirit are harmonizing. This is why we meditate. This is why we spend so much money on books, on research, why we dedicate hours at our inner sanctum in front of these altars. I can tell you that I've seen apostolics pray for 5 to 8 hours in a single night. I have seen practitioners that do weird stuff that you and I would probably look at as being way the hell out there. Okay? But it's their perspective of what they've been led to do. You see, you have that respect for their way of life. You have that respect and that humbleism to look at something and go, okay, I was wrong about this. I had the wrong idea. That shows humbleism. When you attack, you've already lost. Sun Tzu points that out. If you've attacked, you attack with honor, but you'll die quickly, especially if that's a more superior mage or perhaps a superior samurai, a warrior. If you got somebody that's trained in the martial arts and you're a street fighter, you're probably going to get your ass kicked. Okay? Because one who is trained for battle and mentally prepared for battle is already at victory because they've already contemplated on what they're capable of doing and what you're capable of doing. They were observant. They researched you. They understood what you're about. So a wise general that's already contemplated all of these factors has already won the war. They've already won the battle. The battle's already decided. What you got to decide is how are you going to stand up? How are you going to go forward? How are you going to prepare? for you, not someone else. All right? So when you think of mind, body, and soul, or mind, body, and spirit, I want you to take a good long look at the physical, the emotional, the mental, and yes, even all these other applications, because they do apply. I was talking with an elder just the other day. I was talking with an elder of mine, and I had sent him something that was in the book of Bushido, because it was something that caught my attention, and it was a common thread that just kept popping up through my research. So I sent it to him, and he came back and said, basically, you just made your first eye-opening experience. You've learned, you've grown, and that's my words, not his. But to put it blunt, the more you study, the more you research, the further along you're going to get. So delve into those works. If these books speak to you, my advice, do it. Go get them. They're on Amazon. Go to Books of a Million. Go to eBay. They've got them. I got all of these. I got the Book of Meditations, Mastering the Stoic Way of Life, Bushido, and Shinto from Amazon. All total, roughly around $60. Just $60 for all those books. This one here, because it was Books of a Million, this was around $30. And I've had that for a few years now. Love this book. I've had other variations of it. But I can tell you right now, it's the best books I've ever bought. Another good one is by Alistair Notch. And it's called The Art of, what's it called? The Way of Cognitive Warfare. Okay, by Alistair Notch. And that was actually based off Sun Tzu's The Art of War. Now, if you really want to get into philosophies, I would recommend Friedrich Nietzsche's book on good and evil. Okay, if you want to understand, you know, let's go with the Way of Death. Then you can go with the Tibetan Book of the Dead or the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Look into let's go with Demonolatry by Nicholas Remy. Same exact thing. You're going to be seeing a lot of this stuff. You go into if you want to go into the journey, the actual journey, get Simon's Necromyicon. From just in 5 pages alone, you can actually see the time of the year that the Mad Arab began and finished his journey. The route that he took, just between pages 5 and 12. Told the complete story right there. Just 5 little pages. But you can learn to read between the lines. Check out the catchphrases. It's very, very fascinating. But like I said, when it comes into spiritualism and physicality, these are the books I recommend. They've really enlightened me. Have a good day.